Retro games are still a rave by many. The reason for this is, well, because they're just too memorable. Don't you wish you could go back to the 80s or the 90s to play these nostalgic games? Well, this is why we're here. Welcome to This Week in Gaming History. My name is Patrick Hickey Jr., the author of the Minds Behind the Games book series, and it's time to ride the nostalgia train, folks. Choo choo! And find out about some cool retro games released back in the day. Before we get to them though, be sure to subscribe and click that cute little bell icon there so you won't miss all of the retro game goodness. Ready? Let's go! Press start. Disney was never behind when it came to games based on their popular characters. Mickey's Racing Adventure was released on the Nintendo Game Boy on November 22nd, 1999. Developed by Rare, this was the company's second Game Boy Color game they ever produced. It features a single-player racing game with a mix of adventure elements placed into it. Aside from the main features, it also has extra mini-games for those who just want some, casual gaming on the side. Its mechanics are not as complicated as it is based off classics like Locomotion. N64 magazine shared that Mickey's Racing Adventure combines exploration aspects from Rare's Diddy Kong Racing with the racing style of RC. The game also supports the Game Boy Color's infrared feature that allows you to send emails to your friends via the infrared communication port. Once you've unlocked the print shop, you can print your own assorted Disney characters using the Game Boy printer. Gotta love that Game Boy printer. The game was also well received by critics, with 8 or 9 or 10 ratings from top gaming websites and publications. It's Disney, folks. You know it's gonna be worth buying. Before the reign of chaos in the Frozen Throne, Warcraft started off as a DOS game for the PC. The hit game Warcraft, Orcs and Humans was released on November 23rd, 1994. Although the game was not technically the first real-time strategy game to offer multiplayer gameplay, it did convince the gaming industry that multiplayer capabilities are essential to future releases of RTS games. Much respect for you, Warcraft! According to Bob Finch, the entire theme of Warcraft was inspired by the Vikings in The Lost Vikings. This was then combined with massive characters under their automated control, similar to Lemmings. Then, they added the multiplayer element of having these opposition Vikings gather and fight one another. Is anyone fans of the Warhammer tabletop games? Interestingly, Warcraft, Orcs and Humans was initially developed to be a PC version of the popular Warhammer 4000 tabletop game. Unfortunately, this didn't push through though, as Blizzard failed to acquire the rights from Games Workshop. Well, fast forward, Warhammer has its own games for the PC now. The notable game title Warcraft was created by Samwise Diddy, and the name just stuck with the devs after he shouted it out during a lunchtime brainstorming session. Believe it or not, Warcraft is actually the name of one of his characters in Dungeons & Dragons, and was intended to be the opposite of witchcraft. He then mentioned that he always wanted to use the name in developing a game. Mission accomplished. After the release of Killer Instinct 2, the development of Diddy Kong Racing for the Nintendo 64 was set into motion. The game was released on November 24th, 1997. Diddy Kong Racing was intended to be a real-time strategy game known as Wild Cartoon Kingdom during its early development stage. The game started in development as RC Pro-Am 64 and was initially planned to have reoccurring characters aside from Diddy Kong and Conquer. There was supposed to be a sequel in the works and was intended to be released for the GameCube and would be called Donkey Kong Racing. However, that plan was scrapped after its game developer Rare was bought out by Microsoft. Now, because of this buyout, the to be continued card was removed in the remake. The game is interesting as it is the first game developed by Rare to have the character Banjo to talk. The character Crunch was originally named Crash according to the promo video. There's not much info we can dig up as to why this is so. There's also an Easter egg placed in the game. If you defeat Wizpig for the second time out, a series of times will be listed after the ending sequence and credits. These times are actually the best times recorded by Nintendo and Rare staff during the game's promotion. They were pretty damn good. If you're like me and you love Chrono Trigger back when it was originally released on the Super Nintendo, then the Nintendo DS port of Chrono Trigger is also a nostalgic game to visit once again. The DS version of this hit game was released on November 25th, 2008. A lot of us can agree that this game is awesome. In fact, Chrono Trigger was the second best-selling game back in 1995 in Japan, with 2.65 million copies sold worldwide by March 2003. This game was without a doubt revolutionary. Not to mention the multiple endings that it contains. Some interesting info. The game's tester had previously complained that Chrono Trigger was too difficult to finish. We honestly felt this. The developers think the game's just right, but lots of players just didn't figure things out that the developers thought people would get too easily. Chrono Trigger's reuse of locations due to time traveling made bug fixing difficult, as corrections would cause unintended consequences in other areas. Also, Magus's 3 generals, Ozzy, Slash, and Flea, are named after other famous musicians. Ozzy Osbourne, former lead singer for Black Sabbath, Slash, guitarist for Guns N' Roses, She's Got a Smile, and Flea, bassist for the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Give it away, give it away, give it away now. This game is definitely rockin'. The game was supposed to be filled with a lot of tracks, but Yusunori Matuda lost several work-in-progress musical tracks due to a hard drive crash. Okay. Major spoilers ahead. At one point during development, Chrono's death was intended to be permanent. As development of Chrono Trigger continued, Chrono's death was made reversible, as it was thought to be too depressing. In the original version of the game found within the demo, it was going to be impossible to save Luca's mother from her accident. With all of this info, it just makes us want to play the game again. Hey, can we make a remake of this on the PS4, PS5, or Nintendo Switch maybe? And then, let's include some of the, the Guns N' Roses tracks. That would be awesome. Turok the Dinosaur Hunter for PC was released on November 26, 1997. The game was a saving grace. It basically saved Acclaim Studios from bankruptcy, but they would eventually go bankrupt after the release of Turok Evolution. Iguana was able to use Acclaim's motion capture studio, allowing humanoid characters to move smoothly and in a convincing manner. The game also uses a persuasive mist to hide the edges of its world, camouflage its draw distance, reduce and erase load times, and heighten the player's sense of tension. This same tactic would be employed to great effect 2 years later in Sony's Silent Hill 1999, only with heavy fog. Turok was later named to be a Nintendo Player's Choice title in 1998, the only third-party Nintendo 64 game to be featured at the time, and sold about 1.5 million units. Also, there was originally going to be a Brachiosaurus in the treetop levels, but they were cut due to memory restraints. Only 50 KB of data was required to include them. Talk about a tight squeeze. World Trip World for the Game Boy was released on November 27, 1992. Have you guys played this one? Let us know in the comments section, we're curious. Hardcore Gaming 101 praised the game's visuals, stating it has some of the best visuals on the Game Boy. However, the publication also criticized the game for being too easy. The protagonist, Yakapu, makes a reappearance as an opponent in the fighting game Galaxy Fight Universal Warriors. Like in Trip World, he's a shape-shifting character. The sprites for the Yakapu can be found on an FDS development disc belonging to Sunsoft. This hints that the game was originally going to have a release on the Famicom disk system. And finally, our last game is Mario & Luigi Partners in Time for the Nintendo DS, released on November 28, 2005. The game received critical acclaim with reviewers lauding the game's use of characters and plot. Gaming website GameSpot, however, criticized the momentary use of touchscreen, labeling it as tacked on, and one reviewer said that he felt the game was better without utilizing the DS's touchscreen entirely. This is the first Mario RPG on the Nintendo DS, and the first Mario RPG with 4 characters playable at the same time. When booting up the game, only Mario and Luigi's voices are heard saying, "Nintendo!" Once the game gets to a point where Mario and Luigi meet their infant counterparts, all 4 will say, "Nintendo!" The game contains an unused enemy called Scoot Bloot. Its sprite and attack animations are complete, but its battle script seems to be unfinished. Lastly, there is an unused Womp character in the game's data. He has several animations, but doesn't appear anywhere in the game. And that's about it for this week in gaming history. Which of the games mentioned in this video have you played? Leave it in the comments section below. And also, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and of course follow MegaCat Studios on all our social media channels. And hey, by the way, join our Discord if you love retro games. See you on the next stage.